I'll jump off. But
Yeah, nothing really big going on.
okay, just Doug's down there by himself.
Yeah.
How much is left? I gotta go check that out. I haven't been down there.
I bet you we've had 400 trees. 350.
Really? Well, I guess this was a perfect winter for us to do.
Well, the other day we counted. We haven't been counting, The other day I had 30 some cut in the morning and then 30 some cut in the afternoon. But depending upon the size, some tree I grab with the excavator and
Good morning, everyone. I'm gonna give it a couple more minutes as people start to trickle in.
Hey, Ryan, give me a call on my cell phone after this when you can. Just a short question for you.
Sure thing. All right, so we're gonna kick it off here and call the Central UP CEDS and RHP meeting to order. And we're actually, we had a little bit of a change in the agenda. Davo had a conflict, and so we're not going to be doing that item, but I do have some MISHDA updates that I'd like to share with you all. And we'll get to those after Sharon Woods' presentation. But oh, there's a beeping sound. Okay. And we're gonna get started with introductions. So I have the CEDS committee roster right here. And oh, am I sharing my screen? Yes, I am. Put it in presentation mode, and the Central UP Housing Collaborative roster. And we'll get started with introductions, and I'll call out names and you just introduce yourself. So Abby Hansen.
Hey there, I'm Abby Hansen. I am with Eagle, the Brownfield coordinator, covering the UP.
Thank you. Bill DeGroot. All right, Bill's not getting off mute, so I'll switch to Holly Peoples.
Hello, I'm Holly Peoples. I'm with Upper Peninsula Michigan Works.
Thanks, Holly. Ashley Selnow.
Good morning, Ashley Selno, Community Action Elder Marquette, Director of Homeless Services.
Thank you. Brett Botbill.
Morning, Brett Botbill, City Manager, Menominee.
Thank you. Christopher Germain.
Sorry, hey, this is Christopher Germain. Sorry, I'm sick, so you don't need to see me. CEO at the LSCP.
Thank you. Craig Cugini.
Hello, Craig Genie, City Manager for the City of Ishpeming.
Thank you. Deanna Johnson.
Good morning, Deanna Johnson, Marquette County Habitat for Humanity.
Thank you. Elise Burr.
Good morning, Elise Burr, Director of the Northern Michigan University Center for Rural Health.
Thank you. Emily Leach.
Good morning, everybody. Emily Leach, Marquette County Senior Planner.
Good morning, Emily. Emily Susie.
Good morning, Emily Susie for QPAD.
Holly Toma. There, Holly. Okay. Jamie Van Buren.
Good morning, Jamie Van Buren with Invest UP.
Thank you. Jerry Warma.
Jerry Warma, Executive Director, Western UP Planning and Development Region.
And Jordan Stanchino.
Jordan Stankina, City Manager, Iron Mountain.
Thank you. Joe Teal. All right, Joe's not getting off mute, so Julie Carla.
Good morning. This is Julie Carla. I'm with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Good morning, Julie. Kathy Reynolds.
Kathy Reynolds, CEO, Greater Munising Bay Partnership and the Munising Downtown Development Authority.
Thank you. Kathleen Henry.
Kathleen Henry, the Superior Watershed Partnership.
And Lois Ellis.
Good morning, Executive Director of the Dickinson Area Economic Development Alliance.
Thank you. Linda Rant.
Morning. Not mute. Linda Rant, Marquette Township Supervisor.
Great, thank you. Michelle LaJoy.
Good morning, everyone. I am the Executive Director for Community Action, Elder Marquette.
You're also the RHB
Oh,
coach.
thank you, Ryan. But I want the noise that Emily received, like behind her name.
A little bit of feedback there.
Sorry, Ryan. It's Joe Teal from Innovate Marquette. My Zoom wasn't working for a second there. I apologize.
Okay, yeah. Miles Villalobos.
Good morning, Miles Villalobos, DDA Coordinator for the Menominee Downtown Development Authority.
Thank you, Miles. Paulette. And if Paulette's not able to get off mute, then I'll move on to Phil Britton.
Morning, Phil Britton, freelance consultant with Fresh Systems.
Glad to have you, Phil. Sean Hobbins.
Hi, Sean Hobbins, the Assistant City Manager for the City of Marquette.
Thank you, Sean. Shannon Morgan.
Shannon Morgan, Runabarry Development.
Thank you. And we have Sharon Woods.
Hi, Sharon Woods, Market Analyst, and I'll be talking a little bit more later. Thanks.
Great, looking forward to it. And Stacy Wellinghoy.
Hi, good morning. Stacy Wellinghoy, UP Field Deputy for the DNR.
Great, thank you. Trent Bellinger.
About the Schoolcraft Union School District Career Technical Education.
Great, thank you. And Tyler Anthony. Okay, moving on to Victoria George. And finally, Will Cronin.
Hey, everybody, Will Cronin, MSU Extension.
Thank you, and thanks for bearing with me while I got through introductions. So that takes us to Sharon's presentation here. So I'm going to stop my share and introduce Sharon. Sharon is from LandUseUSA, a Michigan-based company, and she recently did the target market analysis for Marquette County, which is a special type of housing market study. And without getting too much into detail, I'll let Sharon share on that. And I see we have Antonio here too that wasn't able to introduce himself, but you can do so now if you'd like.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Antonio Don, Marquette County Land Bank, housing specialist. Thanks for being here, everyone.
So very relevant to the housing target market analysis, your position is. So Sharon, I'll let you take it away here, and actually I'll enable share screen too. So
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. Hey, thanks so much for inviting me to join your meeting this morning. Ryan gave me about 20 minutes on your agenda, and I'm going to try not to use all 20 minutes. I'm just going to give you a real quick kind of introduction to what a target market analysis is. It's a specialized kind of housing study. And, you know, I have some introductory types of like PowerPoint presentations and slide decks that sometimes I use. But Ryan and I were talking, we thought, you know, it might be more interesting for you to actually see, to kind of do a preview of the work that we just finished with Christopher Germain and his team for Marquette County. So Christopher, if that's okay with you, would you maybe give us a shout? Let us know that that's okay to share Marquette County today.
Yeah, that's totally fine, Sharon. Thanks for asking.
Okay, awesome. So I will go ahead and share my screen. And I'm going to go, hopefully you can see a PDF here. I'm going to flip to a different one. So the large page should say housing market analysis. You can see how fresh this draft is. So we haven't finished the work, and this cover page is going to change as well. Christopher and I are working together on revising that, but I kind of want to just walk you through what a target market analysis kind of looks like once we have completed it. And I think that will give you a better idea to kind of, if you want to imagine doing something similar for your county or for the region. And I know we have a lot of stakeholders here in Marquette County, so you might also, you know, just kind of find the data interesting. My PDF tool is a little different than Adobe, so it might look a little different, but if you can see my arrow up here on the upper left-hand screen, and I've got a big screen up behind my camera, so I look like I'm looking at the stars, but I'm just looking at my larger screen. I have 3 files, 1, 2, and 3. And you can see document 1 is the residential target market analysis. And then we also do a real estate analysis. I'm sure my friend Shannon, who's also on the call here today, would probably love this data. And then we have the demographic data. So basically, I'm taking different pieces of the analysis and kind of tucking it into their own PDF documents, because otherwise there's so much that it starts to, you know, the document size starts to swell. And in the work that we do, we try to be really transparent, and I give you everything that I do. So on the demographics, I think of these as layers of the cake. So layer 1 is like the top layer. That's the last thing that we do, but I kind of have to do a demographic analysis before I do anything else. And you can see the first, as I'm scrolling through these thumbnails, I'm letting you see my thumbnails on purpose, so you can kind of see that there's a narrative in here. Some of my clients are asking for slide decks instead of narratives, and we can do either or. You know, in this case, Christopher asked for a narrative, so that's what we provided. Now, on the demographics, we do the basics, you know, what you would always expect in a conventional housing study. It's all here. It's just that the target market analysis adds on additional layers. So we look at population, and I'm going to flip through these really, really fast because I've only got 20 minutes, right? We look at householder age. I'm going to flip through like what are the origins of population in migration, and if they're leaving, where are they going? I'm going to pass over those. Well, actually, just real quickly, Marquette County was interested in understanding to what degree climate migration might contribute to long-term population forecasts. So we kind of have some climate migration charts here. If you're interested in seeing these maps close up, just go ahead and Google these words, you know, climate receiver place. And you'll be able to find these maps on, it's on a website called Place Initiative. So Place Initiative is a nonprofit that's kind of working on addressing climate change and equity and urbanism, kind of where those three things intersect. There are other things, I'm going really fast, I know. We look at worker flow, so like, you know, where are workers migrating, where are workers commuting to, and where are they coming from? And there's a ton of data in here, guys. I wouldn't be able to really show it all to you, but we look at work, you know, what percent of the households are, what percent of workers are working from home before and after COVID. And then we get into how many households are there and how many are owners, how many are renters. I know you can't possibly process all this data that fast, but I want to get to the good stuff, which is the target market analysis. This is the fundamentals, right? Every housing study should look at all of these things. And by the way, we did the study not only for Marquette County, but also the city, Trowbridge Park, Harvey. So Trowbridge is north of Marquette, the city of Marquette. If you're not sure, Harvey is southeast. And then we go from West Ishpeming, which is a census designated place. And then we go to Ishpeming City and then Negaunee, so kind of west to east. And then we go down to K.I. Sawyer Air Force Base, and then lastly, Gwynn. So those were the communities that the county kind of hand selected to include in this study. There were other things that we did that you might find interesting. For example, we looked at other counties in the upper Midwest, upper Midwestern states. So not just Michigan, but we actually looked at places like Wood County, Wisconsin, Cass County, North Dakota, St. Louis County, Minnesota, and just kind of wanted to be able to provide a sense of perspective without just comparing Marquette County to Michigan averages, because, you know, kind of downstate is really just so different, right? So we tried to find some counties that we thought would be a little more relevant really to the Upper Peninsula. So lots of stuff. Then we look at household income by tenure, recognizing that owners have much, much higher incomes than renters. So we always have to split the data. It's not enough to just look at median household income. We have to split it by tenure. We look at things like movership rates. This is important. So owner households, only about 6 or 7% of them move in any given year, whereas renters, 30 to 35% move every year. In a market where there's a university, a college with lots of students, that tends to be boosted because students have such high movership rates. So we look at that data also for each place. And then we get into housing units, and we look at units by building size and building permit activity over time, and then median values and rents. You get the idea. It's all packed into there. And then we also do a real estate analysis. This is, I know, Shannon, you've seen these scatter plots before. And I'm sure you intuitively can relate to this kind of data where there's an inverse relationship between the unit size and either price per square foot, value per square foot, or rent per square foot. So usually smaller units get a higher price per square foot, and larger units are a little less efficient and have lower productivity in terms of return for developers. So, one thing that we talk about with communities a lot is, in addressing affordability, one of the best ways to address affordability is to just right size the units, bring the unit size down so that we can bring the prices down. That means that the price per square foot will be a little higher. It also means the developer has to build more kitchens because you're building more units, maybe on the same footprint, but hopefully there are ways to make that work. Those scatter plots were owner units. Obviously, I'm going way too fast to digest this, but here are the four rent units in Marquette County. I will share that the data isn't perfectly comparable. You're not seeing as many dots here because I only had a couple of months of data in 2023, so fewer observations, but you can really see that ski slope. Here's the ski slope. Whew. And then when I had this data, I actually had 2 full years, so 24 months of data and actual sold data, like what was the selling price, not just what it was at what it wasn't what was the asking price, but how it actually sold. So 24 months of data on that chart and only like 2 months of data on that chart. So you get the idea. We look at other things like, short-term rentals was a very interesting topic to really show the relationship between how many bedrooms you get and the monthly rent that you would be able to capture out of that unit if you leased it as a short-term rental. And I will share with you just real quickly, short-term rentals, these property owners, they can get $6,000 to $10,000 per unit per month if they go to short-term rentals. Of course, the downside is there's more risk. You have to provide, furnishings, you have to provide utilities, you have to manage the property, make more repairs. So there's a lot more cost, but it can be highly profitable. And this is what really is driving that short-term rental market. We're already at 10:20, so I'm going to dive into the target market analysis real quick. Basically, the target market analysis, I'm going to jump to this page. This is Marquette County. And this is the ta-da, this is the conclusion. And what we do is we look at how many households are migrating into the county each year. And we figure out who they are, what they're looking for in terms of price and format and tenure. So that's kind of the process. Is the way to read these charts is that there are 470 brand new owners migrating into Marquette County every year. And there are also 930 renters migrating into the county each year. Now, I will clarify that this 930 includes about 420 students. So if we take those out, it kind of normalizes the data where they're more like similar owners and renters. So basically, to be on the safe side, just say 400 owners, 400 renters, non-students migrating into the county each year. And so together, these two numbers total about 1,400. And the same number is in this chart. But what I've done here is I've taken those 470 units and broken it down a little more by format. So I'm saying of 470, there's your total. 305 of them would buy a house. These are owners on the left and renters on the right. And 115 would look for something different, like a townhouse or a duplex. And maybe 50 of them could be converted into condo style apartments. Of the 930 renters, 490 of them, half of them would be inclined to look for something detached. In other words, half of them don't even want really an apartment. So this hopefully is breaking down that that notion that renters go into apartments and owners go into houses, because it's much messier than that, and inclinations and preferences are increasingly diverse over time. So we did that for each place as well. Forgive me, I lost my place on these charts. So in addition to capture, that's based on in-migration, we also looked at retain. So retain is a word that I use to refer to households that already live in Marquette County, but maybe they're moving from one address to another, but they're not leaving. They're just kind of shuffling. So that's a whole nother market potential. And then the third layer to this is we could also perhaps intercept a small bonus, kind of what we call the bonus or upside. Households that currently are bypassing Marquette County and going to other counties because they can't quite find what they're looking for. But if we built what they wanted, then perhaps we could intercept them. So that takes a little more work. It's definitely the upside. If we took all three together and said, okay, we're going to build 470 new units for owners migrating in, plus 490 new units for households migrating within, and then we'll add another 100 because we think we can intercept households that are bypassing. Combining those all together would be like the most aggressive, like do not exceed top, the top parameter of what the market potential could be. Whereas the conservative would be just the capture. So I know I'm throwing a lot at you. There are a few other charts here to show you real quick. We look at who are these migrating households. So of those 470 owners, who are they inclined to be? And I'm sure most of you have probably seen this kind of lifestyle cluster data. I use Prism data from Experian. You may have heard of tapestries or mosaics. I'm sorry, I use mosaics. Prism is the other one that's used by Nielsen Claritas. I use the mosaics from Experian, and then there's tapestries, which I think are Esri. So it's all good data. It's very rich, even though these descriptions look very short and they don't say a whole lot. I actually have about 20 pages of data that goes with each of those lifestyle clusters. And then perhaps the most important part is of those 470 households, what are they inclined to tolerate in terms of price? So what's their price tolerance? And this is the part that slows developers down. You know, it's easy to get excited and say, wow, 470 houses. And we can just imagine that they're all $450,000 or more, right, in price. But the reality is that a big group of these households that are migrating are really hoping to find something that's more tolerably tolerably priced, attainable. I could maybe say the word affordable with a lowercase a. So of those 470, 100 of them are hoping to find a house for 250 to 275,000. And if developers say, absolutely not, we can't build that, then we have to start exploring other alternatives, things like cottages or townhouses or even, condo style apartments, to look for other alternatives. They don't all need to be supersized mini mansion style houses. However, there is a market here. 18 of these, only 18 out of all 470 would tolerate paying $550,000 or more. So I'm going to stop there because we're at 10:26 and I'm sorry if I went really, really fast, but I wanted to save time for questions and make sure that that we're talking about things that are interesting to you. So what do you think? Questions or thoughts that you want to share with the group? This can be a conversation. Christopher, what do you think?
Thanks, Sharon. Everybody's being really quiet, so I'm going to jump in. First of all, I want to say thank you. This has been long-awaited data. I have not delved into my report sitting in my inbox yet. And I don't know how much Ryan and Antonio and Chris may or may not have talked to you about our ongoing open grant application with MISTA to take this to the next step for us. But I anticipate that there'll probably be a handful of conversations to follow just to make sure that what we have strategized, that there's not some additional data that's in your box that may not have made it into the final report that might still be useful to us, since you've already like collected and gathered. We may or may not seek to see what might be just raw data that we can possibly pair off from the total, but not in the final report. But whether that's even possible, because I don't know contractually how that sits in your mind. But overall, you're on target for what we asked you to do, and I think it's a great product. And diving in and understanding will probably be the next real challenge for all of us, is like, how do we interpret and make sure we don't over interpret or incorrectly interpret or misinterpret something in a way that shapes us in the wrong direction. So, but anyway, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, if you have special requests or questions or data that you want to share, I would recommend that you kind of funnel that to Christopher, if you don't mind, and then he'll kind of assemble all of those thoughts and distill them down, and then I'll work with him on that list.
Yeah, Chris is part of that team, so we'll be doing that for sure. So,
anyone else?
I see there was
Hearing
a
none.
question in chat when the final report will be available, and maybe Antonio, you can speak to that.
Yes, absolutely. Sorry, probably the end of March, but perhaps your question was for Antonio. Go ahead, Antonio.
Yeah, I know that Sharon and Chris have been working on the draft final. Just to be transparent, we have a intergovernmental task force, that committee that has been looking at these, and we're jumping on a call next week. So correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but I think in the couple of weeks after that, we should be ready for the final draft, and then making that publicized sometime, if I understood you correctly, Sharon, towards the middle or end of March. So that would be a public facing document at that point.
Yeah, yep, that aligns with our conversation. So I think the rollout of this kind of data, as you guys all just saw, there's so much data in there, right? How we roll it out and how we take it down the bite-sized chunks, but people still understand it's relatable. I think is part of the question that we have. But we had a breakfast and business event here at the end of January that did a sneak peek at the data. And I have so many emails from people who want the full thing. And so there's a lot of excitement around this kind of data. Oh.
A quick question while we have you, Sharon. Can you clarify a little bit of the gauge for tolerance that you spoke about? Just give us some insight on how that was surmounted, or how do you kind of capture that within the program here?
Yeah, so it's part of the Experian lifestyle cluster data. So Experian's data for each of 71 lifestyle clusters, they actually say, how many households are earning different income brackets, and then also what they're actually owning in terms of home value brackets. So I'm lining those up. So it's different than HUD's approach. HUD will say take 30% of AMI, and that should be your monthly contract rent, or 40% of AMI to back into a mortgage tolerance. That's a little bit different and will generate lower results. It kind of skews the data in favor of grant dollars to support projects, that provide low income and affordable housing choices. But this is a little bit different. This is more taking, how much households are actually earning and how much they're actually owning by lifestyle cluster. It's a different approach. And then that's national average data, and I have to make adjustments for each local place in the analysis.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it.
And I see we had another question in chat from Tyler Anthony from City of Escanaba, and he's asking if a TMA is in the works for Delta County, I think the answer is no, but I see we have a number of people from the Marquette Intergovernmental Housing Task Force here, and I just want to ask them, yeah, and anybody can answer. How did you organize this and decide to do a TMA, and what was the process overall?
Yeah, Chris, you take that. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was say I wasn't. It was actually kind of decided by the time I got here already, but so I think part of the conversation, right, was that they just needed more data, right? We needed more like something tangible that had to come out of that group beyond just conversation. And so a TMA was something I think they had seen other areas of the state do. And as we're already seeing just in a few weeks that we've had the data, right, it changes the story and changes the conversation you have around housing. So the actual process for finding Sharon, I think, was very much a who does these, right? There's not a whole lot of people who do these. We're really fortunate to have Sharon right here in Michigan. And we had seen her work previously. And I think, Sharon, you came and talked to the Housing Task Force, right, as part of that at one point?
I think we did several virtual meetings.
Yeah. And so I'm trying to think,
So so part of this really started in the realm of what we call our Superman meeting, supervisors and managers of Marquette County, and trying to derive what our challenges are collectively. And then from that, it spurred the Intergovernmental Housing Task Force. And from that, it spurred what do we need in order to be relevant and effective in coming up with solutions. And at that point, we started working on buy-in. And buy-in, I mean by participation and revenue. So we determined which communities wanted to participate. It's not a holistic assessment without it being a county-wide report, but if you wanted to be actively listed as a community in the report, then you would pay a share of that. And so we went to our councils or whatever our decision authority was in order to carve out some of that funding. Meanwhile, there was an additional effort going on through Andrew and her staff and Chris to seek a grant from the state that would help with that. And so we used the local funding as the match for the grant, and we were successful in getting the grant so that we were able to afford the total package collectively without any one community being overburdened. And then it was assigned to LSCP and land bank or county treasurer. I'm not sure which role Ann was in the moment of that day, and she covers all of them, and she's probably on, but Antonio could probably say it too. But I mean, generally speaking, when I talk to Ann, I'm talking to 3 organizations always, and because she doesn't let anything rest. But we collectively just reasoned out what it is. We had some old data, felt it was too old, wasn't going to be relevant for decisions, knew we needed it. We had to strategically plan, apply for a grant, wait for the grant, generate the match. So it's not it wasn't a short process. If you got a pot of funding somewhere that you can jump on, the contracting part wasn't the long pole in the tent, I guess. It was getting to that point of having the funding and doing the RFP and getting that on the street. That was the long pole.
Yeah, and I would certainly back that up. Like once we chose to work with Sharon moved very quickly. Almost hard to keep up with her at some points. Everything she was sending us. So it is the funding that was difficult. And we use an MDARD grant, as Craig mentioned, right? Which Marquette County gets bonus points on MDARD grants, just because of the funding source for the Rural Development Fund. So that made it a little easier for us, but it was a really great use of that grant. So
great, thank you. I'm interested in the developer perspective. Shannon Morgan, can you share how you see a resource like this, and does it change your opinion of Marquette County?
No, we actually use the same data sources as Sharon probably is aware of. What I would bring to everyone's attention that she brought up that's very critical is understanding the delta. As you see right now, there's a mismatch between the typology of housing that's needed and the price points to deliver. When you look in your area, you guys are up about 40% in construction costs. So the big challenge is matching your data needs. As Sharon said, she's basing it on Prism, which is a like geometric profile that she does. So number one, I would, ask that municipalities understand how we assess data, because a lot of locals find a hard time, that they feel that the data might not match what they're seeing kind of on the streets with activity. But data is used in financing from a developer's perspective. But the big challenge is that what you're seeing in most cases to deliver is going to take some type of incentive. And those incentives have underwriting requirements, and almost all of those, even if it's housing TIP, is going to require an AMI. So you need to understand, is it going to be an MSA AMI? Is it going to be a HUD AMI? And how does that match with your needs? Because, the challenge always is, what is the delta to deliver the gap in the project? And how do they match up? Because that's always key. How do you bring the financing in? So oftentimes we definitely want to look at your housing units that you have to deliver it, but you have to look at the pathway to be able to complete that. So I would say that it's really critical to match Sharon's final information up as you start to look at absorptions and you look at migration patterns, and start to look at what your sources are to deliver those. And first, I would just even start with, say, housing TIF, because there's certain metrics that the communities are going to have to deliver. You're going to, and Ryan, we reached out to you. One of the key components is you're going to have to forecast your jobs. So that information needs to be readily available in communities. And you're going to have to forecast your AMI for the MSA. And maybe others, I use a lot of acronyms in my world. So for others that have questions, I'm always happy to walk you through those pieces.
Great. Thank you for the insights, and thanks for making yourself available.
Yeah, Shannon, I'd love to connect with you after this and just kind of maybe talk some of that, because we are generating some ideas here, and Ishmael, love to connect and just kind of go through some of that and at least take some good notes on what kind of things that you can see we might need to consider for some of the things we're doing for the future. But thank you for that info.
Are there any other questions?
I wasn't sure about the question. I'm not sure I'm understanding it. It came from Lynn Durant. She says, Sharon, can you show the page detailing financial divisions of the intergovernmental group? I don't think I'm clear what she's asking.
I'm thinking that was one of the first few pages. I don't know if it's part of the TMA. Maybe it was part of the intergovernmental correspondence that showed how the dollar values of the grant that we got and how much each community contributed. Because I think what that other gentleman was asking, if they were going to have one, I forget if he said Delta County, they want to know how to put this together. And that's the first piece. Craig, gave a great synopsis, but you got to figure out your funding to pay you, Sharon. So if you have that page, or maybe again, that's not part of the TMA.
Yeah, Lynn, I would say that's not part of the TMA itself. I'm happy to share that data. But I think anytime you talk money, it's a little sensitive. So I think we could chat a little offline, but I do have that list. So the LSCB coordinated all the funding for the project. So, but what I can say is it ranged local governments from $1,000 up to $5,000 plus the MDARD grant, which was $50. And then a handful of actually private sector and nonprofit partners also chipped in like $1,000 each. So,
yeah, and Chris, you might might be better to share the letter that we shared with councils. Like there was a synopsis of what we were trying to do when we brought that to our communities in order to ask them for the funding. And that might be something that would be a platform to step off, because I think every community is going to have to determine what their equitable share is based on how the makeup of their county or how whoever's going to participate in. Because at the end of the day, you still have to have a total amount in order to achieve a total contract. But we were starting somewhere, and I think we generated a pretty good letter to describe what it was we were trying to do that could be shared across the community, across the councils, commissions, or private sector in order to say what it was we were doing and why we were asking for a participant share to cover the match. And that is probably more useful than what everybody's share was as far as that. But you know, I think that might be a good starting point for those that are trying to be interested in mirroring or replicating what we did.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find that and share that. Maybe Ryan, I can share that with you, and you could share it with others if that's okay.
Be great.
I vaguely recall what you're talking about. I don't see it in the files right now, Craig, so I may have to dig. So yeah.
Well, if there are no other questions, we're gonna switch gears here. So, there was a MISTA office hours that occurred on Wednesday for co-leads, and we got some updates on the RHP program. So the highlights of that are there was an across-the-board budget reduction for all RHP regions. We were adjusted down from 2.48 million down to 2.28 million. So we lost $200,000 in this budget reduction. Quarterly progress reports are going to be posted soon. We completed these for the first quarter of 2024, and MISTA is processing them and putting them into a really nice template that includes the progress on all of the all MISTA programs. So like My Hope and NEP and all sorts of different programs. So it has some really nice metrics in it that I'll share with you all once it's available. But they'll be posted on the RHP website on MISHA's page. There's I've mentioned the common application before for neighborhood housing initiatives. So that's a myriad of programs that I just mentioned. That's going to be called the My Neighborhoods app, and that'll be released, I think, April 1st, and so they'll start taking applications starting April 1st and begin processing them by, I think, April 15th. That includes RHP. Next, applicants may choose from eligible activities, including public amenities, homeowner rehabilitation, and new construction. So what's different with the My Neighborhoods app is that you're not applying to a specific program like the NEP program. You're stating what the activity is that you wish to be doing, and then MISTA finds the program that applies to what you're hoping to do. Michelle, did I miss anything here? I think there was one more eligible activity that I didn't catch in that.
Okay, one thing, no, I think you caught all four the public amenities that you listed, the homeowner rehab, new construction for rental or homeowner, and then the public amenity for rehab of existing or new construction.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Now, Ryan, could I have you answer a question that I had posed towards me? So as the 6 counties, we developed our goals and priorities in an action plan. Are we able to change anything in that document right now, looking at public amenities, the first activity for the pocket parks and playgrounds?
I think right now it would be a little bit difficult. We would have to look at the statewide housing plan and look at the goals that are within that to see which ones match with public amenities. And then as a group kind of come to some consensus on what we want to shift out of our regional action plan and shift that in. So if that's an interest to the group, we can, well, Michelle and I were talking about hosting a webinar as this application gets closer, and maybe we could make that part of the agenda, is re-looking at our action plan and seeing if we want to make any adjustments to that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. That meeting, I think we would target for late March, early April. So that's when our next RHP meeting would be. And I'll let you all know when that gets scheduled. Next, new construction over 400,000 requires a 1-to-1 match, and there's a maximum subsidy of $100,000 per unit. Eligible entities include entitlement and non-entitlement communities and for-profit and nonprofit organizations. So developers can also apply for this funding. Proposals must set aside 20% of units for 60% AMI and below. And 8 or more units will trigger Davis-Bacon. And I already mentioned that the application will be available April 1st and begin processing awards by April 15th. Does anyone have any questions? So I'm seeing that that there's eligible activities in the My Neighborhoods application, and we also have, so projects have to have alignment with our regional housing plan, but they must also be eligible activities of the My Neighborhoods application. Does anyone have any questions?
Ryan, this is Shannon Morgan. I'm sorry to jump in. Just another note, especially for the municipalities out here, know that each one of these funding mechanisms have specific underwriting metrics when you're looking at these for your communities, both within AMI targeting data that's going to be needed for grant applications, as well as other fundamentals to qualify for that grant. So I always think when you can add that data, so people, municipals are aware that there's going to be special requirements, that's helpful. I would add to this 2 things. Know that CDBG is supposed to be coming out, and that the gap funding round for anyone that's doing affordable housing is open April 1st. And it is a massive rural allocation. There's a $10 million set aside in gap funding for rural only. So those I think are important as well.
That's good news. Thank you.
Yeah. So Ryan, couple questions. So and maybe Shannon even knows this too, but is there a direct link for the information you're pulling from to get like the background information? Because it's some of this stuff needs partners. It's not just the city trying to choose to do a housing. It's like, okay, who's my developer that's going to partner with me to make this happen? It may not be a developer. It might be that we work with Habitat or some other agency too to do some things. But watching how my LICTA packet is moving through scoring, there are also other economic components that we're going to have to start looking at too, because one of this place, like on my LICTA, a single point can put you out of the fundable range. Not, where water and sewer, I'm looking at, 10, 15 points at a time. On a LICTA, it's a single point. And one of those single points is having a workforce development center within a certain radius of where you're planning to put it. Some of it is, do you have a hospital within a mile? Do you have a school within a mile, library within a mile? And so where you can build also matters. So when we get into these kind of things where it can go in and look at rehab and fixing houses, I think that's where the biggest bang is right now, because it's less cost to complete, and you don't have to find a new space. And so long as we can fit it, but then you got to find so you can actually build, and builders want to build new construction and take a whole deal. So we got to find partners that are going to do rehab construction. But like, there's a lot of questions that need to kind of figure out ahead of time, and understanding as much as we can about what those criteria are, because as Shannon's alluding to, there's these data points that are very hard to come by or hard to generate necessary to get the application. So you got to back plan all that, and figuring out how to get your application correct and get as many points you can up front, and knowing which partner knows how to navigate those things. So like, I'm gonna be calling Shannon and saying, hey, how are we gonna navigate some of these components that she knows about? But it's really a make or break deal that we've got to figure out, because I'm watching where we were successful and where we weren't. And like, I was not successful on the neighborhood enhancement program recently, but our partner at Habitat was. And I think the component was that I'm not, as a municipality, a structured organization based to do housing solutions. So they chose one partner in Ishpeming. Instead of giving 2 awards, they gave 1, because Habitat does this and they've got all the mechanisms. So like, sometimes you just have to have a partner on the application that they're going to recognize, and sometimes you have to be the partner that is recognized. And there's a lot of navigation we got to start figuring out, and I think people need to start at least looking at how the scoring works, as is alluded to on the AMI data. Like, that's a portion of scoring, but there's so many little components that I would have never known until I started a LICTA project. So we need to kind of put our heads around that too. Sorry, that's a long talk, but.
Yeah, there's a MISHDA convening in Lansing happening mid-March, and so we'll get more information. More information will be open to the public after that meeting. But Michelle and I were also talking about, in arranging this next RHP meeting, that we would invite Tim Clont to answer questions for us to that. So we could look at asking some of these clarifying questions to Tim during that time.
Ryan, I would also make a suggestion to this group to have a representative join the Michigan Housing Coalition. I think the UP is the only statewide group that is not a part of that. They're meeting on March 1st. That conversation is about meeting with some of the representatives and members of the Senate Economic Development Committee on pushing the Michigan Housing Trust Fund forward on those new legislative pieces. And there's a couple of new pieces coming out of the Housing Committee for the House of Representatives Housing Committee, but I would recommend that that there's a representative that joins that group as well.
Great, thank you. I was not even aware of that group, so I'll definitely look into it and talk with my partners about who's most appropriate to sit on that. I see Victoria, you have your hand up. Victoria, are you there? No. Okay, are there any other questions?
Can you hear me now? Sorry.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I thought I took it off. Is there a link to this already out there that gives some of this information? Like if we wanted to forward it to, if we were talking about a project to a developer in our area, you know, that because you said that they were also eligible.
No, this was just a sneak peek for RHP leads at this time. I think, you know, probably mid-March, the information will be public.
Okay, no, that's fine. I was just wondering. Yep.
And if there's not any other questions, I'm going to flip over to our next topic. And that's project brainstorming. So I shared with you our regional housing action plan so you can get familiarized with it. And we have it broken down into housing ecosystem, housing stock, and rental housing. And I think most of the projects are going to be under housing stock, creating more stock, rehabbing stock. And so I want to open it up. What project ideas do you have? It might be a little early to be talking about this, but are you thinking about anything that you might apply for, or are you thinking about developers that you want to share this information with to encourage them to apply for it? Anyone?
Is this specific to the funding that's coming out on April 1st?
Yes.
So I think part of that conversation is just the understanding of, you know, what type of projects, because comprehensive projects, I think, you know, a lot of people are always shocked about the time frame it actually takes to get projects off the ground, especially if there's incentives involved. We'd be happy. Obviously, I think everyone knows and I saw Linda Rantz on here. We have a project in Marquette Township that, you know, we're getting ready to move through site plan approval for. We'd love, you know, to talk to the township separately, but that could be an option depending on how they want to move forward. I mean, other than that, I think, you know, the reality is you have to have a discussion. Is this going to be incremental and small development? Because the priority is going to go towards shovel-ready projects that have some of their either public processes in place, or you have to think, is there going to be tax abatements or other pieces here when you're moving through? Because to move through on MSHDA's grant program, they're going to want to see that there's some due diligence. Is generally putting a scope together. So realistically, you want to be able to look at projects that can comprehensively put an application through, meaning they have site control, they have some numbers and budgets and things that are going to meet the initiative. Has MISTA released their underwriting requirements yet?
I'm not aware. Michelle, are you aware?
They have not. Maybe after we meet with them in March, but they really haven't shared a lot up until this time.
So right now, UpCap is actually running 2 programs that are similar to the project ideas that are listed on there. One of them is through ARPA funding that UpCap received back in 2021 for older adults and home modifications for accessibility. We've been operating that program now for a little over a month, and the participation and the applications that we've received are, I mean, we can't even keep up with them right now. We have a committee per our guidelines that meet weekly to go over the applications that we received the week prior to look at approval for them. We thought that finding contractors would be difficult, but a lot of the applicants are coming with quotes already from contractors. So it's actually been moving pretty quickly, that we've already expensed quite a few of the funds towards it. And then we also have our MISH grant that is going to be starting the end of this month in early March, with the portal being open for residents in the UP as well. So we've been running programs similar to what they're requesting. Obviously, it's not new development, but they're rehab or repair programs, and they've been working out really nicely. And there's definitely a need in the central region for it.
That's so great, Emily. Thank you for sharing.
I have one more recommendation. If you don't have locals with, shovel-ready projects, those are always the easiest, but I see the Develop a Regional Incentive Program for Workforce Housing. Not to throw out Invest UP or others that have a fund, but probably the easiest way to source money is to make a direct grant application to anyone that would have or source a fund that could seed workforce housing. That would, require some more flexibility for it to be dispersed to municipals that are not quite ready for that shovel-ready project to help, or even help, municipals get through some of the public processes and housing TIF processes. Just if that would be the recommendation, to be able to still direct the allocations locally to the groups in this. But a fund would be the easiest ask, in my opinion.
Thank you for that. I'm learning so much here. Thanks. I guess a lot of this is dependent on the passage of SB 293, which hasn't been reintroduced yet into the legislature, to the best of my knowledge. And last I heard, it's expected to be reintroduced in April. So we're still waiting for that piece to drop. Sharon, Mackey. Sharon, go ahead. I see you got your hand raised. Okay, moving on then. Is there any other questions? All right, if not, we'll move into FYIs, grant opportunities, training opportunities, and upcoming events. So there's a whole lot of grant opportunities from US DOT. There's the Raised Discretionary Grants, the Safe Routes to School mini grant, and the safe streets and roads for all. There's even a lot more than that that are supported by the Michigan Infrastructure Office Technical Assistance program. And so the Michigan Infrastructure Office is currently taking applications for support through 2 windows that are occurring February through March. Those are intended to help communities put together applications with pre-development assistance on a number of these US DOT grants. So if you're interested in that, please send in an application to the Michigan Infrastructure Office, and they'll help you out. The Rural Business Development Grant from USDA is closing soon. Eagle has an agriculture and rural business energy incentive grant. Senator Peters recently sent out a message about congressionally directed spending, which is due on March 12th. USDA Reconnect, with its broadband grant, opens on March 22nd. And as you know, the EDA Public Works and Economic Adjustment Assistance does not have a deadline. It's always open, and I'm always available to talk about applications with communities about any infrastructure or public works needs that they have. And the MSHA Housing Readiness Incentive Program, I found out at this office hours that funding is still available to non-RRC communities, but the RRC allotment has been spent down. And then moving on to training opportunities, MSU Extension is hosting a series on governing essentials. Really great for city councils, township boards, county boards. Those are going to be happening in the spring, summer, and winter. And MSU Extension is also hosting a short-term rental webinar on March 28th. So if you're interested in short-term rentals and how to regulate them, tune into that one. And upcoming events, MSHA's Building Communities Conference is happening May 14th and 15th. And Eagle is hosting a My Healthy Climate Conference on May 16th and 17th. So you might be able to go to both of those since they're both in Lansing. Is there anything else anyone would like to share that I didn't identify here? And I see Will posted a link to the short-term rentals and
the governing essentials series.
Oh, great. Thank you. All right. And so any partner updates that you'd like to share that's relevant to regional development or just want to share?
Hey Ryan, I would point out from the LSCP, we have hired a program manager for the Small Business Support Hub. So Erica Huss started a couple of weeks ago. So as many of you remember, that was $3.4 million awarded to our region in November. So I believe Accelerate UP has posted their contracted navigator position. So they're a contractor who will employ that navigator. So if you know anyone who would be a really great small business resource navigator, you can head over to Accelerate UP. And then we expect the SBDC to also be posting 3 positions through them very shortly. So We're excited that the hub should be up and running in April. I really hope. The first tranche of money should arrive to us sometime in March. So we're getting rolling.
It's really great, and that's going to be a great resource for small businesses for sure. Anyone else?
Yeah, this is Antonio down here, housing specialist, Marquette County Land Bank. Andrew just shared some good news for the state approving Blight 4 application to take down the Tilden Township School. I think that award was for $136,000, which is really good. Kudos to the team there for working on some of these blight programs, and state allocated funds for that land bank program for us has been about $1.7 million, which goes a long way here. So just want to give her some kudos that she's out on this call.
Great, congratulations to the land bank on that. That's really great. Michelle.
Okay, Sharon Mackey put something in the chat. I want to make sure that people did see this. She wasn't unable to mute her phone. She has a shovel-ready project in Negaunee Township and would be interested in any assistance or advice to get it rolling.
Great. Any others? Anyone else? Well, if not, then we're concluding the meeting. Our next meeting is taking place April 25th, 10 to 11:30, but we're going to be planning a RHP specific meeting in the meantime, and that'll happen somewhere around late March or early April, and you'll get word on that. So thank you all for attending, and have a nice day.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Ryan. Don't forget to
Thank
get
you.
a call.
Thank you.